This is really critical. And this is really, if people just understand this, it'll help them so much. It's going to save a lot of heartache. A strong mindset comes from strong skills. And strong skills come from talking to people. Just talk to people.
And then when I saw TTP, I was like, duh. Like, this is the best coaching KISS acronym you could. Literally, you want to be successful, TTP.
It's about 80% of the wholesalers are gone from 2021.
Oh, that's what it is. Less competition. Hell yeah.
It's wide open.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Leads to Deals podcast, where we talk about everything from leads to deals and everything we talk about leads to deals. If you're here, it means that you're driven to level up your life, skyrocket your financial success, master the art of sales, the persuasion skills that are necessary for you to become a multi-millionaire through conversations. This podcast is for you, those go-getters and deal makers. Today, I'm super excited to have a special guest on the Leads to Deals podcast, Mr. TTP, as the shirt says himself. He's a guy that I've followed for years, really gotten intensely into the content over the last 9 months or so. Serial entrepreneur, real estate investor, online personality, and just a general real dope, good guy, sales coach, sales master. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Brent Daniels.
Scott, my pleasure. I've been watching your episodes with some of my best friends all morning, and you do a really great job.
Well,
you come to these things prepared. I don't know if you have like a sheet that you have like questions on, and they're all like in little boxes and everything, and you kind of get through it all. But really appreciate
the sheet. There's the little boxes.
There it is.
Well, I think I'm gonna hop into that because that was one of my questions, man. Sales, script or not? Where are we going? What's your advice?
Well, I think that we all use scripts, right? We all use scripts in our lives, and especially when we're getting on the phones and speaking with property owners for the first time, because what you realize is, at least this is something that took me probably 1,000 conversations, was whenever I asked somebody if they would consider an offer on their property, there was only 6 responses that I would get, 6 categories of responses. Yes, no, maybe, how much will you give me, who are you, and how'd you get my number? And so I figured if I knew the responses to those responses, then I can keep the conversation going. And so it just helped me, in the way that I communicated and the way that I worked with some of the other guys that were making some calls with me. We just kind of put together best practices. And it worked out. Do I think that there's a golden script that'll turn somebody that is a bad communicator into a good communicator? No.
Yeah.
But I think that it can help people that are open to learning, open to going out there and being proactive and speaking to people. And it gets them kind of past the hump so they feel comfortable. And then you naturally fall into your rhythm, your tone, the way that you say certain words, the way that you pause, the way that you sound curious, or you sound concerned, or you sound excited. All those things are are really important in what we do if you are in a sales position, which if you look at real estate, we're not selling houses, right? We're selling opportunities. And so it's, at least on the marketing side, on the lead generation side, what we're doing is we're using our voice. We're using our skills on the phone to be able to be of service to people that want to sell their properties and buy properties. So you got to get really good. You got to have great, you have to build in your scripts, and you have to have them well-oiled and shiny, baby.
There's a quote I heard probably 4 or 5 years into my entrepreneurial life. It was like, amateurs practice till they get it right. Professionals practice till they can't get it wrong.
Sure.
For me, that's kind of goes to the scripting. It's like, there's no movie that I've fallen in love with that didn't have this wireframe and scripting. Now, some of the best scenes of the movie, obviously, whether it was Pesci or somebody, all of a sudden something came to them because they were in flow state. They were in ether and something was channeling through them, but they have the framework of that script. And as I realized I wanted to take this as a professional venture, like, hey, listen, I didn't have a really big college degree and I wanted to be able to find my way out of my situation. I just realized that all great things, like all sports athletes, they have a playbook before they go out on the field. They're memorizing the plays before they go out there. So if I want to be a professional, I damn sure better learn the basics, the wireframes of this, because as you get distracted, you have this thing to fall back on.
Well, it is. I mean, it's skill. You know what I mean? It's like anything else. Nobody hits a golf ball like Happy Gilmore. That's fake. You know what I mean? Like for the most part, there's mechanics to it. And if you understand the mechanics of what you're doing, that's how we learn and that's how we grow, right? There has to be framework that we work off of as a foundation, and then we can start adding our own flair to it, our own, specific personality to it. But there is fundamentals when it comes to this business, and it really is often really great questions and allowing people the opportunity to melt their force fields of that knee-jerk reflex, get out of my space stranger and open up to us and allow us to find out what's going on if there is something going on.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head with questions. Like literally just from a side, if I could just train anybody on any tactic in sales, it would just be the art of asking developing questions and just like hitting those second and third layer questioning. It's literally, if you could just have that super power under your belt, the closing comes easily because you've done the discovery. And if you're asking good questions, Brent, you're actually talking less. And so now they're so engaged, it keeps people on. And so for you, as you're training people, or you're training people as well on the importance of questioning and discovery?
Oh, that's the whole business, Scott. Yeah. That's the skill of what we do. If you are doing lead generation or you're part of acquisitions, even if you're selling deals and you're more of a disposition manager or in that role, the discovery is so important. And what I find is people try to build external pressure. Right? They try to tell you all the reasons why you should sell right now or what's going on or what the neighbors are doing and all these other things. If you build internal pressure where they're making the decision, one, the deal is going to be a lot stickier, and two, they're going to feel a lot better about it. So you look at it, okay, well, what is the surface level and what's really the emotional level? What's really going on? What's the current state that they're in? What's their desired state? We call it Heaven Island and Hell Island, right? What does Heaven Island look like and what does Hell Island look like? And if you don't understand those, it's very difficult to close, right? That's when you run into all of those sellers that go, hey, Scott, just send me an offer in the mail. No. Just I'm collecting offers. Just send it in the mail. You don't need to know why I'm selling. You don't need to know when or how much. You just send me an offer. If it's good, I'll call you. Like, that's not a lead. A lead is somebody that has made the decision they're going to sell their property. Okay. And then it is up to us to make them feel comfortable enough to open up as to what is their goal. What is your goal in selling this property? Is it to get it to sell it for as much as possible? Is it to sell it as fast as possible? Is it to sell it as convenient as possible? So we're always looking at that. There's three factors that we're looking at with every single property owner: speed, convenience, price, and they get to pick two. Which two do they want? If they want speed and convenience, they have to work in our price. And that's what it is. That's when you give cash as is offers. If they want price and they want speed, then they're going to have to sacrifice convenience. That means they put it on the market, they fix it up, they get their dogs and their cats and their parrots out of the property when they're showing, and their kids. They keep the property in really good shape. They keep it clean. They do all the little things to get as much as possible. Those are the factors that we're looking at, and we don't know those unless we do the discovery process.
I literally could chop up what you just said, just use it in training tomorrow in the morning. And it's almost...
You already know this, Scott. Listen, you're running circles around me, bro. Trust me. You were running circles. You know this stuff in your sleep, but it's the absolute fact. I mean, when price, speed, convenience, and price, what two do they want? And then work your deals from there.
What I love that you said, though, you talked about closing. So I think in this industry, Brent, when I first got exposed to it, I met and I saw a lot of salespeople. And there is a difference between being a salesperson and an order taker. And sometimes the urgency is so high because of the motivating flags that you don't have to necessarily be a closer. But I just feel that if you truly believe in your wholesaling company, or if you truly believe in your solution, you're not doing them any harm by going into a closing situation. But unless you've done proper discovery and you found, as you put it, like Hell Island, which is another word for saying pain points. And if you can get those pain points from Hell Island and you learn how to kind of lay into those and push those buttons and walk them through, you'll never close. you'll just be waiting for people. You'll send out the thing that blew my mind when I introduced this industry is how many people sent out contracts and would go online like, got another deal today. And I'm like, bro, all you did was send out a contract. Like, that's not getting another deal. Now, sometimes they would get signed and they wouldn't, but 100%, like Hell Island is pain points, knowing them, being able to push them
Motivation.
delicately, motivations for the close.
What's their problem that your offer is going to solve? And how do you know what offer to give them? Like, you can refer it to a real estate agent if they want retail. Yeah. And if you have a real estate license, I get 50%. I have a real estate license since 2004. So I get 50% of that, even if they want retail. Oh, it's a dated house that they want more than a cash offer. Great, we can do a novation. Oh, the house is completely destroyed and they want to sell it as quickly as possible. They're getting a cash offer. So you have these different tools, but you don't know that until you really pull that out and see what's going on with them, and then discover, and this is really critical, Scott, and this is something that I think a lot of people don't really realize when they're getting started, is what is their goal? Amen. Ask them, what is your goal with this property? Right? And then it doesn't matter what price they throw out. It doesn't matter. What is the situation? What really matters to them? And then once you understand that, you know as well as I do, Scott, if-then questions are so powerful. Well, I can't sell it yet because I've got too much stuff in the house and I don't have enough money for the U-Haul, and my tenant has another 45 days to stay in the property, and blah, 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 blah. If I were able to buy the property with your tenant in there, then would you be ready to move forward and do business with us today? Right? If then questions are so powerful. I love them.
Dude, I love learning from you guys. And what's interesting, in every time I hear guys like you out there, I say, okay, the fundamentals are the same no matter what. And so it's like the process is stronger than the industry. And so it's everybody's kind of saying the same things at a certain level. It's just the nuances of how they articulate it and then what gets consumed. Like when you said TTP, I said, oh, I love this. This reminds me of KISS, my first sales mentor. It's like, you want the most fundamental part of sales, keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple, salesman. And then when I saw TTP, I was like, duh. Like, this is the best coaching KISS acronym you can. Literally, you want to be successful, TTP. You want to be successful. So I got to know the story before we go too deep into the sales woods. How, like, were you just laying in bed one night and you were like, TTP? How did it pop up?
No, so I had a real estate license for a while, and so I was just a traditional real estate agent, and I was coached by a company called Mike Ferry Organization, and I had this incredible coach called Kathy Anderson, and her big push was a strong mindset comes from strong skills, and strong skills come from talking to people. Just talk to people. Just talk to people. Just talk to people. All you have to do is talk to people. It's undefeated, Brent. It is undefeated. If you talk to enough people, you will accomplish all of your financial goals. And so I said, okay. And I was calling traditional. I would call on expired listings and canceled listings and for sale by owners and just listed, just sold. I'd call around the neighborhood and tell everybody about my listing. And then I started driving for dollars and finding ugly houses because I had some investor clients that wanted to do these big flips in popular areas here in Phoenix. And so I would just call on these ugly houses and I would find these deals that weren't on the market. Nobody knew about them. And I was like, this is incredible. I'm going to just focus on calling ugly houses. And then I figured out what wholesaling was. And then I figured out what assignments were. And then I was like, why am I being a real estate agent? I'm going to do wholesale. I mean, this is way better. I'm making way more money. I see these guys making $40,000, $50,000 on these deals that I'm giving to them. They're giving me 3%. I'll just do this myself. And that changed everything. And then I was listening to a podcast in 2016, the Wholesaling Inc. podcast with Tom Kroll. And Tom's energy was bananas. And he had never been in the business before. And he was just raw and he was just real. And he was interviewing people. And he was like, how'd you find your deal? What'd you say to them? What paperwork did you use? And I was like, this is like something I've never heard before. And I got into wholesaling and coaching. And then Tom found out that I was getting all my deals from cold calling because I just kept pouring into the community, just saying direct mail's great, but I don't spend anything. I just call up people that have ugly houses. And then it just snowballed. And he's like, hey, do you want to speak on stage in 2017 in Salt Lake, Utah? And I said, sure, I'll tell everybody about it. And so I was like, I need to have like a shirt, a logo or something. And I grew up, it's kind of embarrassing to say, but I love it. I grew up, WCW was really big in the late 90s. And there was this group called NWO. And they had black shirts with a white box and NWO, New World Order, in the box. And I was like, that is a cool look. That was like, they had the Wolfpack, they had the NWO. It was this whole thing. And I was like, okay, well, I'll get a design guy to put it together. And he put this together, slapped it on a t-shirt, and that's it.
Off the top ropes on the industry right there with the DTP.
That's it. I mean, it's just, yeah. And people could, I have high energy. I'm loud. So I'm kind of like a caricature, like a wrestling caricature on some level. You know what I mean? So it just fits. And people see it and instantly recognize it. And I'll walk through Costco, or my dad will walk through Costco, or any of my TTP students will walk through it. People know what it is. And so it's, and it makes it easy to know what to wear in the morning.
So I made all my money prior to this and getting into this industry strictly on inbound. Like if somebody said, hey, Scott, what's your core marketing proficiency? I'd actually say inbound PPC. Like that, I never really mastered Meta, but then I got into this vertical and I saw the opportunity zones on outbound, and I just saw the CPL, and I loved that I could curate my own buy box and like exactly if we wanted 3 bedrooms, because I just couldn't figure out how to get only AdWords people from people that were 3 bedrooms built at this year, et cetera, et cetera. But what I love about TTP and talking to people, the way that you say it is, being in sales is never a zero-sum game. When you pick up the phone, you're sharpening that sword. You're able to practice on that objection. You're able to cover that. You're able to get more data about that market, that whatever. And so it's not just like, oh my God, I spent this much on the phone. It's like you're getting these incremental wins. And as soon as people appreciate that, like, all I have to do is get my first deal. It might be, I don't know, just pick a number. It might be 7,000 dials to my first deal. Okay, great. Now you have what's called a KPI. Now your objective is to get 6,500. Now your objective is to get 5,000. And that's what I love about sales, is because there's so much data, or telephone sales, outbound sales, there's so much data. You can get these little KPIs and you can get better and better and better every day and do these little small incremental wins. And so I saw this as the outbound guy right here, Brent Daniels. Here he is.
And listen, here's the facts. There is a, I think, an evolution as you're in this business, and it starts with building those skills and being really proactive. Because the fact is, I mean, if you look at the average cost in a major market for inbound deals, actual deal close, you're anywhere from 4,000 to probably 7,500 as an average, depending on what market and the price points of those markets and the values of the properties. I think that would be fair, right?
100% agree.
And so if you're starting out and you don't have $4,000, or let's say you do have $4,000, but you've never talked to a property owner, so you don't know how to do the discovery process, it's very difficult to get to actually close, even if you spend 4,000 to 7,500. So I always say, before you spend money on anything else, talk to 1,000 property owners. That's your job. This is your business. If you're going to be a wholesaler, if you're going to be the one that's sourcing these deals, if you're going to source it with the intention of flipping them or adding to your portfolio, or just being in the driver's seat of really finding the best discounted properties, the best opportunities that you can get, you have to have a lot of conversations. You got to build that skill yourself. You know what I mean? And build that up, and then start hiring people and start bringing them on. And then how to handle those leads. If not, then it's tough. I don't know. But Scott, you've got a company that calls for people and texts for people and does all that. So what's your opinion there? Give me the reverse of that.
I'll give you the life cycle of success. I think that, first off, you need the skills. I want to go to war with somebody who's elite trained. And if I come in and I enter the industry only off of TV leads, I'm sorry, I'm going to be softer. My skill set is not going to be as rugged. If I come into the industry off of cold call, especially if I did it myself and I went through the grind myself, and you put me on TV lead, I'll crush every single person in that campaign on
That's
that
right.
one. I think it's a foundation that you get yourself, and then it ultimately becomes like a chair. Like it's one of your legs that you should have. Like, I don't think you ever give up on it as much as you expand as you're successful. So it's a great first leg of your chair, and then maybe PPC, and then maybe mail or inverse there, maybe some PPL or some radio or some TV. But you'll realize that there truly are pockets of sellers. The same people that I will get to respond to a mail piece are just not going to respond on the phone, or vice versa. Right. So I love when people come to me who are like, Scott, we've done cold calling for so daggone long, but now we want to do revenue producing activities, which is just close leads. Like, I don't want to prospect anymore. That's kind of like my avatar client. But in general, I like to see people have multiple prongs in their spoke of their business.
Yeah, it just depends on your budget, right? It depends on your budget, depends on your skills. If you don't have a budget, you have to be proactive. I mean, it's either that or you build referrals, right? There's only 3 ways to do business: inbound, outbound, and referrals, right? Marketing, prospecting, or referrals. That's it. And so if you don't have a budget, I didn't have a budget. So I had to go door knock and make calls, because it was the least barrier to me having a conversation with the property owner. They weren't going to call me, so I had to call them. Yeah. And so that really built up the war chest to be able to do pay-per-click, which we spend $50,000, $60,000 on, and TV that we spend $50,000, and direct mail that we spend $25,000 on, and all those things. But nothing happened without me hammering the phone from 9 to noon every day for 6 years. Yeah. Every day, Scott. And 9 to noon. There wasn't your company. There wasn't you couldn't hire a sales floor of people that had any idea how to have a conversation with an off-market property owner. That didn't exist. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I think that the most successful people in this industry go through that hustle season. They go through that season where everything is challenged. Am I doing the right thing? Is this the highest and best use of my time? Am I getting better at this? Am I wasting my time? Should I be looking at another industry? Should I be looking at another opportunity? All those things. And you fight through all of those and stay focused and stay consistent, because you know real estate day in, day out for the next 100 years at least is going to, be something that's reliable in a world that is completely unreliable.
Yeah.
You stay focused, you will win. It's only a matter of time. No doubt about it. I don't care what your background is. I don't care about your experience level. I don't care about your age. I don't care if you grew up in a family that told you are the greatest and the strongest and the bravest and the most beautiful, or if you were told that you're the worst and you'll never amount to anything. Anybody can pick up the phone and turn into somebody else. Anybody.
I say that to these kids all the time. Zig Ziglar, I'm pretty sure it was him. First off, I love Zig Ziglar. He was my favorite, sales coach, mentor, everything back in the day.
Incredible.
I cried the last time I saw him in person because I knew he was at the end of his life. And just this amazing, phenomenal person, second to my dad, as a male impact in my life. But I remember him saying, he's got a story, something like, no doctor has ever seen a baby and said, that's a salesman right there. And so there's no natural born salespeople. It's all a skill set that we get to bring in and we get to improve and enhance and et cetera, et cetera. And when you said something about door knocking is actually even more gangster than cold calling. If you can do door knocking, you can do cold calling. If you can do cold calling, you damn sure can do mail, and you can do this, you can do all the way up the chain. So I'm curious for you, what industry do you love to recruit from? When you're like, hey man, I got 10 resumes in front of me, only looking at paper, they've sold or had whatever industry. What is it that you look for in the past when you're like, I want to interview that person first?
Cops and solar salesmen.
Wow. I'm in on this, on the solar system. I never thought about cops. I'm assuming
they're the best. Yeah, the best acquisition manager that I've ever had was a police officer in Scottsdale here for 12 years. I mean, one of my best friends. I've been trying to recruit him forever, but I mean, he has seen the worst of the worst of the worst, and really great police officers or anybody in law enforcement. Their whole job is to really diffuse. Is to just get everybody calmed down, really understand, really get people to not just lean on all of their emotions all the time, and they see people at their worst. Yeah. So their capacity for compassion, their capacity for empathy, their capacity to be authoritative, their capacity to really ask a lot of questions is nothing's like it. Nothing's like it. So
Yeah.
that's an untapped one is former law enforcement or current, depending on, some guys don't want to make it a career. Some guys are just done with it. And so was he. And I caught him at the right time, but he's the best. He's the best.
I probably haven't thought about this guy, and I'm really blessed in this conversation because you made me go back in my memory banks. When I very first started sales, his name will come to me later today. He was a real big, heavy set guy. I was doing face-to-face sales in Williamsburg, Virginia. I was working at a timeshare resort. Like, I had stumbled into a timeshare resort. I was 20 years old. I'm installing a security system, Brent. And I just asked the guy at the machine as I'm teaching him how to use it. See all these young kids decked out, BMWs, Mercedes outside. Everybody's wearing suits. And I'm like, what do you guys do? He's like, timeshare. I was like, I don't know what this is, but I'll be back tomorrow. So I started, it ended up being the next week. But this guy, he was the former police chief of Nags Head, North Carolina. Heavy set dude. He was the epitome of don't do as I say, don't do as I do. Because our pitch was normally 2, 3 hours, 4 hours sometimes. This guy, because of the extreme credibility of being a police officer, being able to talk to people, he was knocking them out in 20, 30 minutes like crazy. So yes, I literally the most successful face-to-face person that I haven't thought about in forever. I'm so thankful for this conversation, but he was in law enforcement as well too. It screams it.
I'm telling you, and they don't get scared. You know what I mean? Like, you've seen the worst of the worst. You're like, oh, compared to what I've seen, this is talking to somebody over the phone is not frightening.
Yeah.
Talking to somebody face to face and just, building instant rapport is it's natural. And so I think that's it's definitely underutilized, but it's a great resource. And then we got a lot of sun here, and there's a lot of solar companies that are out and about. And so we recruited Chad, and he was doing door-to-door solar sales in July in Phoenix during COVID in 2020, right?
Yes.
Like full blown pandemic. And so we got him out of the sun and into an office, and he's been huge. I mean, he's made us millions.
Old Zuckerberg's got my feed all screwed up because I'm constantly following or have these guys on my feed who are on these little hoverboard things, and they're going door to door. And I'm constantly like the solar guys, the window guys, and the bug guys. And I just love it. And that's the thing too. I was explaining this to Jamil the other day. I said, dude, my passion is we were talking about hood homes, like where to find them, et cetera, et cetera. I was like, man, you know how many kids that are out there? Young men and women, kids that are doing illegal necessary things for them to survive, or just dumb, young 20-year-old stupid things. And they're driving past all these houses, and they don't know that I could actually do this thing to monetize this house. Or all those people who are selling solar or doing these other things who are literally bypassing that house like, yeah, that one's abandoned. Let's go down this one and think somebody's home. And they're on their hoverboard going right past the $30,000 check, just like that. And so that's why I love your guys' industry, because it's like, wait a minute, I can take sales skills, and there's a plethora. Like, how many homes are there? There's a plethora of opportunity out there. So I'm in love with the wholesale industry and being able to build my own portfolio. I wanted to ask you about kind of your pivot. Are you more face-to-face or virtual for your closers when you guys go by those houses? Are you closing them?
Yeah, face-to-face.
Face-to-face.
Yeah, in Phoenix, if you try to do virtual, you're done. You're done. There's just too many really, really great companies that'll go to the door and beat you like a drum.
Nice.
You got to go face to face. Now listen, we do very well on the phone. 80%, 85, 90% of it is over the phone. The last 10% is just
conversation. Yeah, gotcha.
It's just getting the ink on a piece of paper, but it's really important to go out on appointments in Phoenix.
As you're a sales coach and a mentor and authority, you're talking to people nationwide. And so maybe not everybody has the luxury of being in a tier 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 market, right? They're in just Nowheresville, Montana, something like that. When you're giving people strategies to talk to people, do you find it easier when you're taking somebody who knows nothing about this industry and nothing about picking up the phone to start? Do you find it easier to get them there face to face or virtual? And then on top of being, let's say, quote unquote, easier, what has the faster curve to success that you've kind of observed over time, face-to-face or virtual?
Virtual is a lot easier to lock up deals, for sure, but 80% of them cancel.
Amen.
That's the problem. The problem is, when you go virtual, it's usually in markets that you haven't done a lot of business in, and there's little nuance that you don't understand, and you learn fast. That's part of the process. When you go to a property, one, in our market, we make a lot more going to the properties than doing it virtually. And listen, that just might be a limiting belief. We've tried it both ways, but it's always worked better that way. Just over the last, 12 years of doing it. Could we just switch everything to totally virtual and make it happen and try to make more? Sure. We've tried it. It hasn't worked, but is it possible? Maybe. But in my experience, it hasn't. So maybe somebody else with different skills or different strategy can make it happen. But it depends on what your strategy is, Scott. Are you wholesaling these deals? Do you have cash buyers? Are you having your cash buyers review your deals before you send it to them, or you get a buy price out of them? Or are you just locking up deals and hoping that you can sell them? Are they in a small market where there's only 3 or 5 buyers? They all know each other and they hate you for even for even getting a property locked up, and they're going to actively sabotage. That happens. Yeah. That's real life in some of these small towns. Is it better for you to go into a major market and lock up as many deals as possible and get a few through and make some money and make some mistakes? Just depends. I mean, I don't know if there's a pure answer to that. Yeah. I'm kind of like just going around in circles here, Scott, because I don't know, every market has a little bit of nuance. It really does. I wish that there was just a stamp that you could go, all the same. Yeah. But you're going to see different price points. You're going to see different exit strategies. You're going to see different potential in each market. You're going to see different economics. You're going to see some areas that are booming. You're going to see some areas that are busting. You're going to see some areas that land does great and multifamily and townhouses and condos, but single family doesn't. Just depends. You have to put the work in. That's why you talk to as many people as possible so that you can get the learning curve out of the way faster.
From an anecdotal standpoint, because I have affiliates nationwide, and my avatars are pretty high avatar. These are guys typically with sales teams. They're spending in total aggregate 40 to 160 or whatever a month, like real spend. I can tell you there's not a single major player that I know who's spending above 50 a month that doesn't have a face-to-face sales team. Now, it doesn't mean that they're not virtual groups out there that are spending, 100 or whatever, but everybody I know who's spending at that level has a great sales cycle. They have leads managers, they have their first touchers, but they're all ultimately going face-to-face to close when possible. And there's a business coach group that we use, Sharper Business Solutions, Gary Harper and them.
Phenomenal.
And they've been phenomenal for my business. It's really just helping communicate. We actually just did our quarterly culture meeting yesterday, which was a rock star thing. And nice. They share some of those same observations. Like, hey, man, we saw a lot of these guys pivoting virtual, a year ago, but almost all of them have been forced and or making the strategic decision to get back face-to-face as the market's compressed a little bit. So I think that face-to-face for the big players is the trend that I see. But like you said, it's easy to lock up a deal. The question is, can you get paid for your efforts?
Well, we do. I have a pay-per-click agency that works with some incredible people around the country. And if you're in a major market and you're trying to do it virtual, it just doesn't work. It just does not work. Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe if it's if you're reaching out to them and you're catching them before there's multiple offers. I always find that the more outbound you go with your lead generation, the less offers we're competing against versus inbound where, they're filling out different forms on a website or they're calling different mailers or, they're calling everybody that they see on TV. But we've seen, we're usually competing against 2 or 3 different companies on inbound and almost nobody on outbound.
I'm out here outside of the country, but for some reason I still get all the USA algorithms and they just constantly hit Meta. What blows my mind about Meta is I'll see one ad out of the blue. All of a sudden we buy houses for cash. And then literally every other post, I have a video I recorded on my phone, 14 in a row. Just, I'll buy your house. And I'm like, wow, because I never really mastered Meta, so I don't really know it. I'm speaking as an outsider. I was like, Dan, this is why I love PPC. PPC, Granted, as soon as they fill out a form, immediately I wanted to go to a testimonial video. I wanted to hit my CRM. I want my guys call them before they can go to that next website. I can take those preventative measures, but for God's sakes, please don't just start showing them other competitors' ads instantaneously the way Meta does.
Yeah. Yeah. PPC. I mean, it's, if you ask my acquisition team what's their favorite, it's PPC, not even close. Because the average, time, first contact to signed agreement is 2 days.
So here's what I learned in my scant journey about being a real estate investor. First off, I took way too long. I've been debating this a lot, Brent, and I said, okay, how did I screw up, or what could I do better if I was going to go back and replay the last 4 years being in this place? Number one, I held on to wholesaling too long before I started taking down my properties myself. I got addicted to this like drug, almost like bigger spreads, more marketing, more content, And I was like, at some point we'll hit the ceiling, then we'll start buying. And it really wasn't as smart, and I didn't buy as much as I could have. I didn't cherry pick the way that we do now. The other thing is, dude, we got Airbnbs, and we got some fix and flips, and we're cool. I got a bunch of doors, and that life is good. But all my Airbnbs pretty much suck. Yep. And everything else pretty much, except for co-living. Some of my pad splits that I have right now are so phenomenal. They're like my best. It's my true only cash flowing. Everything else is just like, let's cover the minimum and make some equity. But the only I'm personally cash flowing on that is single family is co-living. So when you hear that, am I just doing things wrong, or do you also feel the same? Or what do you know about co-living, et cetera?
Yeah. My good friend Jamil Damji is doing a bunch of co-living. Him and his sister have really made it. They really have a heart for affordable housing. And if you just look, you could Google amount of new houses built by decade. If you were to pull up that chart, and maybe somebody in the back could pull it up, it is shocking where you see the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000, and then 2010 to 2020, boom, it is dropped. I mean, it is dramatic. And then right when it starts creeping up, 2020. And so I think it's an interesting opportunity. I think that it's a different business. I would consider it more of a business than a rental property. You have to be very good at the way that you structure it. You have to make sure that the deed restrictions in that area align with that, and you don't get in trouble there with the amount of cars you can have or people living in a property. So you have to watch out for that. I think it's a strong strategy. I think a better strategy, Scott, is just lend your money, be the bank, be the bank, be the bank. I mean, that is listen. It is the top of the pyramid. It is I am telling you, Scott, I know people that have these unbelievable portfolios, $100 million in equity portfolios, and their lifestyle compared to the hard money lenders in town is nowhere near. You know what I mean? There is always drama, always tenants going bananas, always property managers going bananas, always repairs and contractors and all of this going on. And the hard money guys are done by 1 o'clock on Friday, and they're, on a private plane somewhere, going to Vegas or California, living here in Phoenix, and they're living their life. And they make a ridiculous amount because they know how to raise funds, and they give their investors 8 to 10%. They lend it out at 12 to 14%, or it's their own money, and they get fees every time that they do that. I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, we've all been stuck in a flip where the hard money lender made way more than we did, and you're like, oh man, they didn't do anything. I'm being the bank.
Yep. What's kind of your exit strategies for your guys? Like for every 10 files that you guys close with the seller, are you wholesaling primarily right now in the Phoenix market? Nice.
Yeah, mostly assignments. We'll do some flips here and there if it's a really light remodel, but we really focus on the ugliest houses because that's where you get the biggest checks. But for the most, and then we'll refer a bunch of retail business to our agent team as well.
I'm speaking again, just my observation. One guy putting a couple of little dials into the pond: Nevada, California, Arizona, Miami. My 4 least favorite, like you guys are like tier 1. I have noticed I'm not going to call it easier. I'm going to call it more enjoyable. In the past 4 months, 4 months or so, it's gotten more enjoyable. And I don't really find it to be the optimism this past few weeks of, okay, we got a new president. I think what the old reality, at least what I hear on the phone from outbound, the old reality of I'm just going to wait for the interest rates to drop before I move forward with my life. People have like realized it's not going to drop. So if I got pain, I'm going to have to solve it, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think it's necessarily easier, but damn if it's not more enjoyable talking to people in Arizona right now.
It's got 80% of the wholesalers are gone from 2021.
Oh, that's what it is. Less competition. Hell yeah.
I mean, literally, batch, skip trace, batch services did a whole study. They spent a ton. And there was like 90 to 100,000 people that would consider themselves real estate wholesalers in 2021. Redid the study. It's 20,000. Go pull up Google Trends and type in wholesale real estate. Watch what happens.
Yes.
It's just, it's wide open. And I think a couple different things, and let me know what your opinion is here. There's two main factors. One main factor is licensing, and the regulations in 20 out of the 50 states. There's 20 regulations right now in 20 states, and a lot of those require licensing. The other one, even bigger, Scott, even bigger, is the reduction of the ability to do text message marketing.
I don't, outbound has a lot of cowboys. And so I think the licensing to me is definitely the smaller of the two, because most cowboys just go and they just wait for their hand to fall off the steed and then they worry about it if that happens. In regards to the text messaging, for sure, I think that helped really, really put a damper on things. And I thought this new this new...
they canceled that.
Yeah, thankfully. And I was following the court case. Literally, I had signed up to follow the whole court case. I saw that the insurance company was coming in. I felt pretty good about it. We had a plan Z for that. But you know what, man? What I observe, again, as just an outsider, is I felt the liquidity. I felt people, because the hedge funds created this precedent that didn't exist before they really kicked up and then went away afterwards, which is you didn't have to have sales skills to make money. You didn't have to have communication skills. You didn't have to have best practices. You could throw a dart on the wall, lock up something, and then hopefully move it to some degree. But when that hedge fund capital just dried out, people who didn't have good CRMs, good nurture sequencing, baseline sales process, I watched them all just like disappear like Dorothy, like they poured water on them and they just melted away. That was the big thing that I saw, at least from the wholesalers that are kind of in that network. Just the liquidity dried up. And what's that thing Warren Buffett says? He says, well, I'll see who's naked when the tide goes out or something like that. That's what happened. Dude, I want to be respectful of your time. I have a question for you. I have actually 2 or 3 more, but one of them is there like a sales quote? Because we all got motivational quotes, or is there something that like just other than TTP, which is phenomenal, by the way, get that. Do you have that tattooed anywhere on you?
No, no. I actually am not wearing a shirt. This is a whole body tattoo. That's the joke. Listen, I think, to me, the more people you talk to, the luckier you are. You know what I mean? That's just it. You know, if that's the way that you want to look at it. And it took me a long time, because I didn't have a problem like speaking to people that I knew. I had problems speaking to strangers, because like you said, you're not sat down in 3rd grade and they're like, here's a phone. I want you to go, fundraise. I want you to go talk to strangers. I want you, I used to like get these chocolate bars that you'd have to sell to raise funds for the baseball team. And I would just give it to my dad to sell at work. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to go I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? And so you build skills, but I think that it was in me. I think that there's, there is some natural part of it. I think that if you have something to lose, anybody can learn the skills. But I do believe, you were talking about the baby looking at it and they're like, oh, there's a salesman. I would challenge that. In my experience, there are people that are just natural. They just want to connect with people. And I'll give you an example. My guys, I took them down to Acamel, Mexico. It's right outside of Cancun. And we went to this all-inclusive as like a team. And my team would just go and they would compete on how many people they could say hi to. And it wasn't like a thing. It was just like a competitive, like, hey, so they're going around this. I mean, we were like the most popular guys in this resort because they're playing volleyball with people. We're doing pool basketball. We're talking, the bars and everything and restaurants and everywhere we went, everybody knew us because we were just saying, be friendly and say hi. And it was that. And the way that I look at it is, when you're doing it yourself, you have something to lose. You're going to figure it out. You're going to figure it out. But when you go and make that jump, and this is really critical, and this is real, if people just understand this, it'll help them so much. It's going to save a lot of heartache. The way that I look at it is a really good salesperson in your acquisitions team is like the left tackle on an NFL team. Okay? Like the left tackle, if you've ever been around NFL linemen, they're the biggest humans on earth. All right. And most quarterbacks are right-handed. So they stand this way. They have to have their blind side protected. The left tackle is the biggest, nastiest, longest arms, biggest butt, fastest, quickest, most natural, unbelievable freak there is. Okay. That's why they get paid so much. You cannot, I don't care how hard you try. I don't care how big your heart is. I don't care, whatever. You cannot be 5'9", 170 pounds and be a left tackle in the NFL. You can't. You absolutely can't. And so when you're going to hire somebody that does not have anything to lose and they're just there to win and they're just there to be sales, they have to have the natural ability. They have to have that gift. They have to not be afraid. Batteries have to come included, and they have to have the endurance of saying a lot of words to a lot of people all the time. That is something that I've seen time and time and time again. The only time my business has struggled is when I try to put in somebody that I thought that I could train into being a left tackle, and they just didn't have the natural. They just weren't natural. It wasn't in alignment. They were always looking over their shoulder for a different opportunity.
I think about some of the guys. Everything you're saying definitely carries weight with me. I think about guys who talk a lot of trash with their buddies. Like if you got a group of joking friends, I find like those are because they're always quick wit. They're always saying something on top of their toes. Like those are great guys to experiment. Also, too, we used to love recruiting back in Virginia, but people at restaurants. Like you would have a server come up to you and the difference between a grade A, they're working the table, literally working the table. And those are the people like, man, bartenders, excellent. Next problem is they make so much instantaneous cash. It's hard for them to go on a pipeline journey in sales. But some of those people are the best of the best as well, too. Have you ever thought like with your sales skills, if you had to boom, real estate isn't here, genie in a bottle, what other industries other than specific real estate would you take your sales skills or your lessons and go into?
Teaching. I'd be a teacher.
Nice.
Yeah, I'd be a teacher and coach for sure. I mean, obviously the income wouldn't be there, but that's what I intended to be. And I am a teacher and coach now. It's just in a whole different industry. But I would teach and coach something.
At least it wasn't stripping. And I was just making sure. All right. So,
not male stripping. No,
not male stripping. All right. Listen, man, dude, I really appreciate it. I want to give you your flowers, man. It's kind of the first time I've got to speak and meet with you, Brent. I really love the vibe. I love what you're doing. I love how you're inspiring people to pick up the phone. And what I love about this TTP mindset is it's literally universal no matter the channel. No matter the industry, it's talk to people. There's people right now that have leads in their CRM that they got from PPC. They read the notes. They prejudged it. They had a bad day. Their wife yelled at them and they didn't talk to people. And they're sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars in opportunity in their thing because that's all they need to do is pick up the damn phone and talk to people. Doesn't matter where the leads come from. Doesn't matter if you need leads. All your problems will be solved by talking to people. And if you want to know how to talk to people, you need to go follow Brent Daniels on YouTube. It's at Brent Daniels TTP, right?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's right.
And what you guys are doing on Wholesaling Hotline, I don't know if it feels as easy as it looks, but just watching you guys kick it, man, dude, it's by far my favorite real estate content is watching you four guys crack jokes on each other. For some reason, it's always Jamil that catches the front end. And but just enjoying you guys talking about real estate. So thank you for what you've done for the industry, my man. Is there anywhere else that they should go to follow you?
Wholesale Hotline podcast, Wholesaling Inc. podcast, and then the Brent Daniels YouTube channel. Come join me live on Wednesdays.
Awesome. You're the man. I really appreciate it right there.
Thanks, Scott.
Fantastic day, my man.